I'm going to UFC Paris, mon coeur. Bonjour bébé, bonjour flumpe, mon petit ami. In 2 weeks' time, the UFC will be landing in Paris for the first time ever, and so will I. Not for the first time ever, ignore that bit, but I'm going to fucking Paris to watch the UFC. Can you fucking believe it? And in next week's video, I'm gonna do my best to take you with me. But this week, let's talk about why this is such a big deal. Not for me, for Paris.
You thinking an exit, holding on to treasures, lusting after pleasures. I become addicted to this feeling under pressure.
The earliest recorded MMA event in the States took place in 1979. France, on the other hand, didn't have their first event until 2015, and then they banned it again in 2016 until 2020. Of course, it's not been a smooth road for MMA in the States either, with a ban taking place between 1983 and 1993, and even then many states were slow to adopt the sport, and many voices claimed it was far too violent, campaigned against it. You probably know that it wasn't legal in New York until 2016, but generally across the US, athletes have been honing and testing their skills for a lot longer than the French crowd. The sport itself was never technically banned, but without being able to put on events, it couldn't properly evolve. Athletes couldn't make careers out of it without leaving the country, and fresh blood wouldn't come into the country, bringing with it new skills, new techniques, new ideas. It was just taking place behind closed doors with a few people whose passion outshone any logic or desire to make money. One of those people was Ciryl Gane's coach and MMA Factory founder Fernand Lopez. A former fighter whose career ended due to a neck injury, Lopez has an unrelenting dedication to the sport of MMA. In fact, amongst all of the campaigning to lift the ban and extensive, obsessive research and strategic planning that Lopez does for each one of his fighters, he ends up totaling about 3 hours sleep a night. There's a running joke in the gym about his affinity for emailing athletes at 4 a.m. But how he manages the team is serious business. The gym employs a strength and conditioning coach, a mental coach, doctor, chiropractor, and an English teacher. That is some next level, innovative, forward thinking for a country that's supposedly behind. But the most fascinating part of this team's preparations is the PDFs. Once one of his fighters has a fight booked, Lopez watches all of that fighter's fights, all of his opponent's fights, rewatches them, takes detailed notes, and once he's pored over everything, he compiles his notes into a PDF document that he then emails to the fighter in question, and only the coaches involved in the camp, nobody else. And apparently they're as close to predicting the future as science can allow. For example, when Gane was prepping for Volkov, the PDF said the bad news is you're going to get hit a lot, mostly to the body. But the good news is if you accept that, you'll win the fight. And what happened? Volkov landed 115 total strikes. That's the most of any opponent Gane has faced in his career. But Gane landed even more to get the decision win, scoring all 5 rounds on 2 judges' scorecards. Now, Gane has been with Lopez since before he started MMA, so all of the success that we've seen him have, going from 0 to interim UFC champ in 3 years, comes at the hands of these intricate methods. Gane is one of the quickest and most dynamic heavyweights MMA has ever seen. He's just so athletic. His style is touch and not get touched, and we saw it against Lewis and we saw it against Rosenstrike. He has a world-class fight IQ. He barely makes mistakes. Now against Tuivasa at UFC Paris, Gane will be looking to use his height and reach advantage and keep him far away. Pop in that jab and the kicks from the outside, or in the clinch and mixing in some takedowns. But that middle distance is where Tai is really, really dangerous. Now Tai is coming into this fight on the back of 5 straight knockout wins, all in the first or second round. Really, the only way Tai is going to win this is by getting another crazy wild knockout like that. Because on paper, skill for skill, he's outmatched. It's more likely that we'll see a decision win for Gane, possibly a submission win. But I'm not expecting Gane to be able to knock Tai out. Derek Lewis landed some huge shots and he couldn't do it, and his power is just something else, so Gane probably can't either. Now, since the country has started to begin allowing MMA events to take place, they've been placed under the supervision of the French Boxing Federation. Now, this isn't unusual, but we have seen over the years in the States loads of dodgy judging decisions because judges come over from boxing and bring all their bias and their lack of knowledge about MMA with them. And this has been a huge focus of the evolution of the sport in the States, and I just hope that we're not taking a few steps back. I'm not sure who the judges are going to be at UFC Paris, but we have already seen a couple of examples of this with organisations that have pipped UFC to the post when it comes to putting on events since the ban has been lifted. The first Bellator event in France back in 2020 was considered a huge failure by fans. Like, mostly that was down to some really dodgy production and also, you know, Gareth A. Davis being alive and involved. But there were also some questionable judging decisions. For example, the split decision for Timothy Johnson, whereas really that was a UD if ever we've seen one. His opponent is a darling of French MMA, and you know, it's not a stretch to think that bias could have been on his side. Now, it has taken the UFC a long time to get here, but hopefully this delay in putting on an event in France has allowed them to learn from the mistakes of their predecessors, and hopefully we won't see them make the same ones. And this honour has been a long time coming for Gane as well. Like I said, there's no point MMA athletes hanging around in France if they can't compete, so he's spent a lot of his career competing in Canada. This will be the first time he is fighting at all on French soil, and he's in the main event of a UFC card. That's pretty good going. But he says the pressure isn't getting to him. He's preparing the same as he ever would, focused on his opponent and not on the special event ahead. But he does also recognise the weight of the situation. UFC London has done incredible things for shining a spotlight on British talent, and he hopes that UFC Paris will do the same. And Gane is playing more of a part in this than first appearances suggest. He's flying the flag for MMA in France and doing his bit to rebrand the sport in the eyes of the French audience, who are a little hesitant, like those early American audiences also were. There's now a French TV outlet showing MMA, whereas usually they'd have to tune into a station situated over the border in Luxembourg. And Gane is making a whole bunch of appearances on said TV outlet. And he's very likeable, he's very charming, he's very nice, and that just paints a brighter picture of the sport as a whole. But he's got his finger in another pie as well. Stop putting your fingers in pies, people, come on. Pastry deserves better. He recently became co-owner of the French MMA promotion Aries Fighting Championship, and he says there are 2 fighters that we all need to be keeping an eye on. Not because they're like, they might do something sketchy, but because they're real good. There's a heavyweight, Marcel Sichev, who's doing big things in Aries. But according to Gane, isn't quite ready for the big stage yet. He's a big guy, crazy genetics, good striking, good wrestling. And the other is Abdul Abduragimov, the Lazy King. He's got a 15-1 record. He's on a 5-fight win streak. with all 5 of those ending in the first round. He's a submission specialist, but do not underestimate his power. And he's only 26, so we can expect it's only up from here. Now, not only has this hometown fight been a long time coming for Gane, just to fight in general has taken a little bit of the passing of time. It's been 8 months since he was out-wrestled by the next evolution of Ngannou. But following this fight, he's looking to really pick up the momentum. He thinks he walks through Tai Tuivasa every time. He thinks he walks through Tuivasa and gets another shot at the interim belt, potentially against the winner of Miocic Jones. But who fucking knows what's going on there? There's talk that that fight will be for the interim belt, and then what, another interim belt fight? I don't fucking know. And the top 5 of the division is so stacked, and then with John Jones holding all the notoriety and power that he does, it just makes things a little bit more complicated. But Gane doesn't seem fussed. Like, he was in control of the Ngannou fight before Francis started wrestling. So some people argue that he should just get the next title shot. But Ciryl says he likes the challenge of working his way back up. He's a competitor through and through, and the competition is what drives him. And what drives me is the fucking Eurostar all the way to Paris, baby. Like, subscribe, watch the videos I'll link for you on the end screen, and I'll see you next week in France.